My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, in our readings today, we hear of a crisis. In the first reading, Moses has been leading the children of Israel right from the days in Egypt up until they come to the plain. And there seems to be commotion, chaos in the camp. Members of different families are murmuring against Moses, even when God has provided for them. What God has done is not enough. They compare their journey, the provisions that they are getting, to their life in Egypt. Here we are wandering in the wilderness, pronounced to be free, and yet our menu is unchanging. Every day we are fed of quails and manna. We are tired of this tasteless food. And in their murmuring against Moses, Moses himself is infuriated. He sees what kind of a people he is leading. And he does not handle the crisis well. If anything, he turns to God in anger. And he says to God, "What is this that is happening? Why do you let me lead a people like this?" We have the crisis within the community, and we have the crisis of leadership. Moses prays to God that it is better for him to die than for him to be in charge of such a people. And yet, in taking his anger to God, somehow his prayer is answered in a different manner. He remembers who God is, the God of love, the God of compassion. And he turns to this God of love and compassion. And God somehow relents. God is not angry that the people have complained. God is not angry that Moses wants to throw in the towel. If anything, he promises that he will be there with the people. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, different people deal differently with a crisis. In the gospel, there is a crisis. Jesus has heard of the death of John the Baptist. He obviously is disturbed and he wants to go to a lonely place to mourn his cousin. And mourning his cousin seems to be a luxury he cannot afford. For the people get to know where he is going and they follow him. And when he sees them, he is compassionate towards them. He begins to teach them. And evening falls. And the disciples are very clear. We are in the wilderness, just as the Israelites were in the wilderness when they complained. And there is not enough for these people to feed on. And it is then that Jesus says to them, "You give them something to eat yourselves." And they speak of their poverty, the little that they have, which is not enough for the multitudes. And yet Jesus says, "Bring it." And when it is put in the hands of Jesus, he blesses it. He feeds the people. And there is plenty left over. That's how Jesus deals with the crisis. He invites the disciples to bring the little that they have. He blesses it. He is loving, he is compassionate, he provides for the people. He teaches the disciples. The little that you have, when it is presented to God, it is multiplied. Even in a dire moment, in a moment of a crisis, respond in a loving manner. Be generous. I'm reminded of our Archbishop, who constantly reminds us that no one has gone bankrupt because of generosity. For God is never outdone in generosity. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, we are living in a moment of crisis. We may be presented with many others. And I suggest that we take Jesus' words today as our response. Let us respond to any crisis that we come across with love, compassion, and generosity. This presented to God with the little that we have, it's enough for everyone. The little that we have when presented to God is plenty.